Hello, my name is Johnny Berry and I am the Head of Decarbonisation, and today I am joined by James Rooney, the Fleet Engineering and Innovation Manager for Centrica. And we are going to be talking about van driving. Why? Well, we hear lots of stories about people driving their EVs across long distances. For example, Kevin Booker from Brecon Beacons drove from Land's End to John O'Groats in a Mach-E. Enzo Tyres recently broke a hypermiling record with the Renault Zoe, and there are lots of other EV drivers that have taken to social media to tell us all about their long-distance drives across Europe in an electric vehicle. But we don't hear about those who are doing it in an electric van until now. Well, James Rooney is here today to tell us about a very long drive that he did in a van. How exciting. Well, welcome, James. So let's begin. Can you tell us a bit more about this trip and what made you come up with this crazy idea?
It was a bit of a crazy idea at the time. The reason we wanted to do the trip is for two reasons. One was to promote what Centrica is doing, what British Gas is doing. Outside of the company, we do lots of good work with electric vehicles. I don't think it's necessarily that well published, so that was part of the reason we conducted the trip. The other reason was to dispel some myths within the company amongst our drivers. So our engineer workforce, quite a few of them will remember the days of milk floats and things like that. And it's to dispel the myth that these new electric vans will be slow, or they'll slow down as the battery runs out, or all of this usual stuff you hear from people who are a bit new into the world of EV, and also to prove that they will do the mileage they need to do to complete an average shift our engineers expect to do. So what better way to dispel those myths than to drive the longest drive you can do in this country?
Brilliant. So on that long drive, how did you plan out charging the vans? What tools did you use to make sure public chargers were working and would be suitable to ensure you kept on schedule?
So we used a few tools, but mainly centered around using ZapMap. The first thing I did was to Google Map the entire trip, because we weren't necessarily just going to stop at charge points, but we're also going to stop at sites which were interesting to Centrica specifically. So our own sites where we're doing, for example, heat pumps, or where we are installing low carbon technology into homes. So outside of those stops, we knew we need to charge, and 120 to 150 mile stints, I'll try and find a charger which we knew would be the most reliable. And to find a charger that we knew would be reliable, we always went to sites where there was more than one unit, using the chat and forum functions to see, whether those chargers were suitable or not, and whether they were working.
So you've maybe thought about that drive, but what were your confidence levels of driving such a long distance in a commercial EV, especially before leaving on that first maybe crispy morning?
It it was a bit nervous in a cold Scotland on that Tuesday morning. Not just because it's something people haven't done before, but also because there's three vehicles. So we had two vans doing it, but also an electric car. We used a Ford Mustang Mach-E. So everywhere you go, you potentially got to charge three vehicles, and you've got to worry about three electric vehicles. Probably quiet confidence, because there's a lot of planning went into it, but that was certainly peppered with a little bit of anxiety around whether that charge is going to work or not. And that really set the theme. Actually, it was range anxiety was not a thing; it's charge anxiety.
Charge anxiety. Okay. And how would you feel now if you were doing a similar trip?
Oh, much more confident. Certainly made some learnings from it, such as which charger providers are perhaps better than others, at least in regional areas. And certainly more confidence to do it again, maybe even slightly differently, or even quicker over less days than we did it.
What was the biggest surprise to you on this journey?
The biggest surprise was probably the acceptance, actually, the vehicles got, and how quickly that acceptance was. I thought we might have a bit of a fight on our hands. Part of what we did was to invite people that weren't just advocates or even up to drive an EV, but people who were massive pessimists. And the idea being we would try to convert them. And I thought that would be quite a hard job to do. But once they got behind the wheel, the acceptance of the technology and the impression it gave was really, really sudden. So that was probably the biggest surprise to me.
Okay. So the feedback was good from the engineers and BG colleagues who drove the van?
Almost unanimously. Yeah, we were really impressed. There wasn't anyone who drove the van that didn't like it, that didn't like the performance, that didn't like the range. Yeah, they were all very complimentary actually.
So on that, what does it mean for British Gas engineers making the switch to electric, or indeed any businesses out there looking to run electric fleets?
So what it means for us is we will continue our drive for 100% electrification by the end of 2025. And I think provided we can get the vehicles, that'll remain largely unhindered. For companies wishing to do it, you need to absolutely check your daily mileages to make sure that's within the capabilities of the vehicle that you're buying. I'm only showing you an example of one particular vehicle, but to make sure it's within the capabilities, and plan charging. That's my biggest piece of advice. The vehicle is capable, the technology is available today. The trick is charging. So how you're going to manage that and how you're going to make sure you don't have too much downtime based on charging.
Yeah. So just to recap, you would say the mileage and taking in consideration of different temperatures and driving behavior and other factors, including range as well, into that. And also, where's the vehicle situated at its dwell times, and how long are the dwell times? Two main things. Okay. So for job need drivers, do you think there is an impact on business operations by switching to an EV?
So for job need, I don't think there is an impact at the moment. Based on the current method that we are deploying our vehicles, which is that we will give engineers that do high mileages a vehicle only if they can charge at home or have the ability to charge overnight. If an engineer is doing a lower mileage but can only charge publicly, then that's fine, because it's all about the amount of time you have within your day as dead time. So our engineers all have about half an hour to 45 minutes a day, and that might not necessarily just be at lunch, depending on when their shift starts. And if they're only doing 30 or 40 miles a day, they might only have to rapid charge for 10 or 15 minutes of each day. So the downtime is less. The hard part will come when we have to start getting engineers who do a very large mileage each day, who can only public charge, into an EV. But we have a few years yet for that.
Yeah, and the cost associated, because if you're en route charging, you're not going to see the attractive rates that you get from charging at home. So it's also a bit of a challenge. So what would you say is kind of like the biggest challenge you think a UK business could face when looking to electrify on a large scale?
When electrifying on a large scale, there's probably two or three factors which are the most difficult. First is vehicle availability. If you're a company that runs very large vehicles at gross weight all of its life for very large mileages, that technology isn't here yet, but should be here within the next 3 to 4 years. The second one is charge availability. If you can't charge at a depot, or you can't charge at home or an office, then you are reliant on public charging. And the availability and the speed of that does massively vary, and as does the cost. You'll struggle to balance your TCO.
There's a massive disparity between the number of charge points in the southeast compared to the rest of the UK. What would you say to businesses who need to transition to carbon zero fleets, but don't have confidence in the infrastructure network?
I completely agree with the statement that it is biased towards the southeast. It represents where people live, I suppose. What I would say to companies who are concerned about charging in their local areas, specifically if they're up in the north and the some parts of Scotland, is that the chargers are coming. There are more and more chargers coming. For example, we were on the A9 coming down from John O'Groats, and we were staring at a broken charger, wondering what we do next. And actually, there was a bank of 6 chargers, all with little covers on, waiting to be opened about 40 yards away. So the technology is coming. Take your wins where you can. So if you have a fleet that covers the country, start to pick the low-hanging fruit where you can. Choose those first. Get that bedded in. Get your understanding in EV in those areas where you can. focus on the harder stuff later down the line. Like I said, at the minute, we're limited on where those chargers are and we're limited on the vans we've got. So work with what's possible, but work with that. And the whole time you'll find that the new stuff and the bigger and better chargers are coming as well.
If you could change one thing from the journey, what would it have been?
I want to do it quicker. So we took 4 days, and we didn't take 4 days because of charging. We took 4 days because we filmed the events, we met with various people, we went to various sites and conducted activities and things. So a lot of our time was spent actually almost waiting for the next thing to happen. What I want to do is almost a race. You know, we keep the vehicles within legal speed limits, but we go as quickly as we can based on charging availability to see if it can be done in under 24 hours.
And apart from many more and higher kilowatts delivery, what else would you like to see from the public network in the future?
Interoperability. So it's what we found is chargers that work with proprietary cards or proprietary apps actually are the worst, and they don't work with anything else. They don't work with the contactless payment card. They are just almost at times a showstopper, because you'll get there and if their sole system with no other access doesn't work, you're snookered. And we found that on numerous occasions. The best chargers are the ones that work either with a system, a payment system, or a contactless credit card, because there's just many ways there to get that charge if one of these systems falls down.
What does it mean to you to lead the way with the UK's largest EV fleet?
Proud, very proud to do that. I'm in a privileged position where our board and our senior leaders have understood the importance to move to EV. I'm also lucky that we're a company which is facing into a green future. So the emphasis is on us to become carbon neutral as quickly as possible, and Fleet is stepping up to do that. But I'm immensely proud to be able to do that, and it's one of those things where when I'm older and I can look back and think I did something here. I really started that transition.
Made a difference.
Absolutely.
And what's next for Centrica on the target fully electric fleet by 2025?
So next for us is large vehicles. So we are able to quite easily now move our medium and small vehicles, and we'll be ordering even more than 3,000 we have on order shortly. However, we need large vehicles, and currently that they aren't really available, and where they are, the range is limited, or they are from brands which don't have quite enough of a UK-wide repair network for us to be able to take them just as of yet.
And is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any other takeaways from the long drive in an electric van?
Yes, planning is everything, and sometimes you will be surprised of what happens. One of the low moments for us actually was in Scotland, where we had the vans on about 10% charge and not quite enough charge to get to the next one, and the charger we went to had a cream egg smashed into the connector.
Oh, right.
So we're thinking, do we try to unpick what we hope is a cream egg and hope this charger then works, or do we limp on down to the next charger? And we chose the latter. But yes, it's plan, but actually these things are very doable now, and we probably could have pushed the boundary a bit more than maybe we did.
James, it has been a pleasure. You've been great. Centrica have been great with electrifying their own fleet. Thank you very much for your time, and make sure you let us know of any other future journeys you embark on with an electric van.
Thank you very much.